as best you can you kind of walk people through how this happened? Like, what is the genesis of how this goes from ridiculous message board idea to like reality that whether you like it or not, you got to embrace and give UNC the best shot to make this work?
Yeah, so it is. It sounds like it's message boardy, but Bill Belichick. Okay, so North Carolina fires Mac Brown. They
Mm-hmm.
basically say, Mac, we want you to retire. We want you to become a fundraising arm for the university. Mac Brown says, no, I want to be the coach. And North Carolina says, okay, well, we're taking away your ball, and we're going home. See ya. So at that point, North Carolina has a list of about 30 names that it wants to at least consider or do some due diligence on. Belichick is on that initial 30-person list. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like they are mining the message boards and being like, LOL, what's the funniest thing we could possibly do here? So they start going through the process, and they have an introductory conversation with Belichick, and two things become apparent. Number one is the fact that he is not the only coach stressing this professional model. It is something that every coach who's interviewing for the process is saying, we need to professionalize what you guys are doing much more than you currently are.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, North Carolina's people are going, okay, well, if we're going to go to a professional model, why would we not hire the guy who's already lived that model for the better part of his life? And the second part is, as it went on, North Carolina became aware that, okay, this is not just we're considering this guy. He really wants this job. He's making it clear. This is before he goes on Pat McAfee and sort of publicly makes his pitch. And then from that point, it was negotiating. And it was Belichick's people, as I understand it, saying, how much can we get here? Like we need a certain level of investment in a staff pool, in NIL resources, in strict Belichick coaching salary that North Carolina has never ponied up before. And, essentially was pushing the envelope as far as possible in that respect. And North Carolina trying to figure out ways to make it work because, again, North Carolina being in the ACC, being in the position that it is, has really always had to rely on its laundry. Like, you're North Carolina, and that's kind of been the argument. Like, open and shut, we're North Carolina, take it or leave it. And I think that especially Chancellor Lee Roberts, who got the full-time job this year, realizes that is not good enough anymore. And so once they realize Belichick is invested, we're going to go to a professional model regardless of who we hire as the head coach, then it became, okay, if we get him on board, what is he saying he needs, and how much of that can we reasonably give to him?
Mm-hmm. Mike, my colleague and co-host Chris Vanini and I were texting about this last night, and I'm gonna use the D word as we move forward in this discussion. Our guy Deion Sanders at Colorado. There's a million different things that make this different: the state of the program, the natural resources, all these things. But ultimately, it's the same kind of model. Transactional approach versus sort of a relational approach. I assume they're going to go heavy on the portal, embracing the idea of perpetual free agency and talent evaluation. In your mind, how much did watching that model succeed, I don't think there's any other word for it, succeed at Colorado this year, influence this idea that, well, college football is moving into another place and we are going to try to go 3 steps ahead and try to meet it where we think it's going? How much of an influence was watching what happened at Colorado?
I think a significant one. And it's also, North Carolina has tried Mac Brown is the relationship test, right? Like that's what he offered. And when he first came back to North Carolina in 2018, before NIL was introduced, North Carolina was rattling off top 10 classes. They're bringing in that caliber of recruits. Like, you get Sam Howell, you flip a Drake May. Like, that was legitimate. And then NIL comes introduced, and all of that momentum comes to a crashing halt. I mean, North Carolina's class right now is outside the top 75 nationally, high school speaking. And so North Carolina is a little bit unique in the fact that it has like a certain academic standard that is always going to naturally place a ceiling on the type of kids that it can get in coming from the portal. But at the same time, this is the complete opposite of everything that it just did under Mac Brown. So certainly, I think that was a part of it. And again, you saw what this did for Colorado, like in terms of sponsorships, in terms of money coming into the university, in terms of enrollment going up. A question that I've been asked a couple of times is like, where's College Game Day doing week 1, if not to North Carolina for UNC TCU, right? Like, that is the place to be. And so I think certainly seeing how that has, like you said, it's been a success at Colorado so far, being on the verge of the playoff in year 2. North Carolina's schedule next year is incredibly manageable. Like, this can be an instant flip. And if Dion did it at a place that in theory has fewer resources in support, why can't North Carolina?
And a much worse situation. It does beg the question, though. I've done a lot of reporting around collectives in the NIL world. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody about North Carolina. And this is a place that is, Jordan Yu has a lot of links to Nike. A lot of it's North Carolina. You've got the state name and the university. Why are they so behind on NIL where we're having to talk about these things and the coaching hire and try to play catch up and I don't understand why North Carolina has been behind the 8 ball on NIL when it feels like, if you compare Oregon and you compare North Carolina, I mean, they're not the same thing, but it feels like they should be a competitor and they're kind of irrelevant up until now.
Yeah, it's a couple of things. Number one, North Carolina has historically been one of the best athletic departments at doing more with less. So their coaching salaries have never been at the top of the pack. Their facilities spending and investment has never been at the top of the pack. Their level of corporate sponsorship has never been top of the pack. And again, I can tell you for a fact, since the news that Belichick was coming to North Carolina has broken, already the corporate sponsorship interest for North Carolina has been, as it's described to me, greater in a single day than it has been in the 3 months before that. So that is already happening. But North Carolina has historically done more with less, in large part because it has that reputation, right? Like, it's the brand, it's Jordan, it's Jumpman, it's banners, it's Baby Blue, it's the Argyle. And I think this is, to me at least, personal opinion, this is North Carolina admitting that it knows that the strength of its brand alone is no longer sufficient to be a major player in college athletics. You have to put your money where your mouth is. And the fact that this is coming at the same time, the exact same, news cycle as North Carolina missing out on the number 1 recruit in college basketball, A.J. DeBonsa, because they didn't have the money and he ends up going to BYU, that to me is a palpable juxtaposition. And so it's a program that historically has done more with less and has relied on that brand. To me, hiring Belichick is an admission that that is not sufficient anymore. And especially in an ACC where the money's not coming to you, North Carolina's saying, all right, we're going to have to go out and get it ourselves.
What is the aim here from UNC? Obviously, we joke about the youth thing, but it is odd. I'm sure he'll be the oldest coach hired in this cycle in college. You can maybe speak to how far down the chute they got with John Sumrall before they got rebuffed. It's very funny to get stiff-armed by Tulane's coach, a rising star in the profession in his own right, and then fall back on, arguably the greatest coach to ever coach the sport. It's not a bad backup plan. But what is kind of the goal there? And I guess on top of that, how Steve Belichick fits into this as well. You hear the rumors of the succession plan. Steve Belichick, let's just say slightly less accomplished than Bill. But what's the aim for what this looks like long term?
I've never heard of nepotism ever factoring into college coaching hires, searches. Never.
Completely
right?
no.
Never. Unprecedented stuff. Here's my thing. My understanding of the situation is Steve is obviously going to be here. He's going to be on the staff. So in what capacity exactly, I think, is still being determined. Earlier on Thursday, when North Carolina confirmed Bill Belichick's contract, they did not confirm any other football coaching contracts. So the only coach who is legitimately locked down is Belichick. So I think some of that is still up in the air. The long-term thing here is that Belichick is going to be your trampoline to the new era. And he might not be here into the new era. He probably almost certainly will not be here into the new era. We initially reported yesterday or on Wednesday that his contract is 3 years and $30 million. North Carolina announces that it's 5. My understanding it is 3 years, $30 million guaranteed. The last 2 years are not. We'll get the full contract terms later today. But this is going to be the trampoline. This is what takes North Carolina from the before times into the modern era. And it's something where, again, it comes against the backdrop of the ACC and North Carolina being stuck in a league that is very clearly in third place amongst the high major leagues. It comes against the backdrop of North Carolina not necessarily delivering in ways that people have historically seen North Carolina do that. The investment hasn't been there. It just hasn't. And this is just a stark departure in every way from anything North Carolina has ever done in his athletic department. And so, I mean, the fact that Mac Brown is making $5 million as one of 3 national championship winning coaches, and they start the bidding at doubling that, I mean, that kind of says it all to me. So, I don't think Belichick is going to be here for the long haul, but the hope is that he gets you both in terms of program prestige, program investment, and professionalizing a program that has long relied on relationships and laundry. You are taking this program, and in the span of, even if it is only 3 years, you're turning it into something much more suitable for long-term success in an era where college sports is increasingly becoming professional.